I'm here with Sandra Lehner. Thank you so much for joining. Uh, you are you have been dubbed by the industry press as the TV futurist, which is a title that now that I know your bio, you have very much earned, which we will get into. And you have owned that title, so you are now the editor and creator of TV Futurist, which is a Substack newsletter, but it's also a platform where you help producers, broadcasters, and brand managers through writing and coaching. And your topic today is uh, why I left film for marketing and what I didn't expect to learn. And I know we went back and forth on is this too long of a title, but I think we both agree that it's the right title. So I'm going to start the timer and
Okay.
why this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Avi. And yeah, when you contacted me to talk about film, I was thinking, I don't have anything to do with film. But then I realized I went to film school. So my origin is in film. And then I was thinking about my story. How did I end up in marketing? And when we talked about the title, I was also considering from cinema to commerce without losing the creative touch, but I felt a bit negative. I don't know why, because it's nothing bad about commerce. But I think to set the scene, so I went to film school in Babelsberg. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's right next to Studio Babelsberg, which was founded in 1912
Wow.
and considered as the oldest large-scale film studios in the world. So it actually predates Hollywood. And it was very famous for the German expressionist cinema, so Fritz Lang, Metropolis, if you're familiar with that.
And this is
For
one of my favorite films.
example, yeah. And yeah, and nowadays it's still a popular filming location. For example, Inglourious Basterds was
Yeah.
filmed in Studio Babelsberg, and Cloud Atlas and the Grand Budapest Hotel was
Yeah.
also filmed there. Yeah. I basically knew most of the supporting actors. They all went to my film school. I think there was a big casting call. Yeah, and that's where I went to film school. And my film school was set up during the former GDR. So I was very much still influenced by East Germany. Eventually, I wanted to study abroad. And I wanted to study in the UK or in the US, but they only had ties with China, Russia, and Eastern Europe. Um, and it was an art school, so they were teaching their students to create art
Yeah.
rather than commercially successful films. And so I was the student representative in the Senate of the university. And so I heard a lot how professors were thinking about film and what they wanted their students to learn at the school. And while I was studying, they had a graduate survey, and it turned out that 90% of the graduates weren't working in film or TV, and
Wow.
only 9% were working in TV and 1% in film. And I think that was an eye opener for everyone.
Wow.
Because Germany is not Hollywood, we don't produce that many feature
Yeah.
movies per year. And also the television industry. I mean, there's a lot of entertainment, and now with the streamers, obviously there are more opportunities. But yeah, back then there weren't that many opportunities if you wanted to create drama series, for example.
Yeah. Well, first off, like you're a perfect guest to have on here. It's I'm not limiting I'm still figuring out what this series really is about. But I think the heart of it is about the changing media landscape. Obviously, with an emphasis on film, but you were very much a part of that changing landscape. And I mean, that is literally your topic is how you went from film to marketing. And now every filmmaker has to be a marketer to some extent. So uh,
Yeah,
one thing,
I totally agree.
yeah, but I want to touch on so why you were dubbed the TV futurist. Maybe you could talk about that for a second because you were working in AI essentially like 15 years ago, I believe you wrote, or not necessarily
No,
working in AI, but yeah.
my film school thesis was about could virtual actors replace human actors? Because I was working as a student. I was working at UFA Serial Drama, which is the biggest drama series producer in Europe. And yeah, and my boss, he was the head of the development team. He was very forward thinking, and he was a gamer. And so there was this game engine called Ex Machina, and he was wondering if we could produce a daily soap in this game engine. And so I wrote my thesis about this, and the conclusion was that the uncanny valley effect is too strong and we don't connect with virtual actors or now AI actors. And I think the technology gets better and better, obviously, but still we are human beings, and we know if there's something off, if we're not talking to a real human being.
Yes.
And yeah, and that was like 15 years ago. So so I was always thinking about the future. And yeah, I was
So
always interested in exploring trend topics, what it actually means.
yeah, you were forward thinking.
Yeah, but I
But
was
yeah.
they called me the TV futurist to go back to that because I've been researching Gen Z for the past 10 years. And I think it piqued my interest because I was attending MIP TV and they had the digital screenings 10 years ago where, you know, different YouTube channels, BuzzFeed and Vice, they were presenting their digital shows. And there was one presentation about Gen Z. And I realized, that, I mean, I'm a millennial, and you know, Gen Z just thinks very differently.
Yeah.
They grew up during very economic turbulent times, and they're the first digital native generation. And I saw quite early on that their media behavior is going to change the media industry. And so I've been, yeah, speaking on panels about Gen Z for the past 10 years. And I think TV producers were interested in it, but they always felt like, ah, you're talking about the future. It's
Yeah.
so far away.
What?
And yeah, and now the future is here. And I think with this whole focus on the creator economy, which is basically Gen Z. You know, they started their YouTube channels 10 years ago. That yeah, now the future is here, and they need to rethink. Um, yeah.
Well, it seems like you pivoted to TV at the right time. You pivoted to social media then at the right time. You've really just kind of uh, you said social media interactive storytelling, which um,
Mhm.
I'm curious what you mean exactly by interactive storytelling.
Yeah, so after I graduated from film school, I wanted to move back to the UK because I was working in drama development in Germany and nothing really got commissioned. And I studied in the UK, and I just felt like it's the better place for me to develop my career. But yeah, then I moved from one day to the next, basically, and I realized no one was waiting for someone from Germany to, you know, work in the TV industry in the UK. And I found a job with a YouTube channel, and it was in 2012 when YouTube was launching their. So they put funding into original YouTube channels. And I started working for Copa 90, which is a football YouTube channel. And they had a show called The Eurofan, and this radio, BBC Radio 1 DJ, he traveled to all the Champions League games across Europe, and they needed someone who speaks more languages than just English. And yeah, so I started working there, and so I feel like I was like at the heart of the YouTube revolution, not
Yeah.
realizing it, of course. And yeah, and now in hindsight, I mean, the way we even produced the Eurofan, I would try to find fans in the country, in Spain, Italy, Germany, who would show us around when we arrive and show us what they were doing before the football or soccer game, and yeah, what songs they were singing, what food they were eating. And yeah, and that's how we developed the episode. But then, so it was a very expensive show. It because we had to travel across Europe and we had to get the tickets for the games. And the most successful show on the channel was actually just two guys sitting on a sofa talking about football and the comments that people left on the video from last week.
Yeah.
And so zero production value. I think it was just one camera they used. But it was the most successful show. And I think that's when I realized how important it is to involve your audience.
Yeah.
And I pivoted to becoming a social media manager. And I worked, for example, on Made in Chelsea, and we had a fan show where we asked the fans questions, or they could leave comments that we integrated in the show. So they felt heard, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
This is just a short
yeah,
aside, is I actually very much worked in this exact field. I led like a startup for interactive video in Google. So I basically worked for YouTube a little bit later and helped them like implement like very specific interactive features, which is exactly what you're talking about. They're still developing that, but they're just, they want to fine tune what those interactive elements are for uh, how fans interact with creators. And they put a lot of energy into that, and it's really paid off. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, I
I
guess
think we learned a lot from what the fans were talking about, what they liked, which characters they liked, which plot lines they liked, and yeah, and I think a lot of producers realize now that they need social media to market their show, but it's also a good tool to look at in hindsight what people were talking about, and use this knowledge to influence the next seasons. And I think Netflix is doing a really good job at this. That yeah, they don't they actually look at what people are talking about on social
yeah,
media.
yeah.
Uh,
They used to have
yeah,
an interactive team, but they switched to games. But but yeah, the type of interaction. So I mean, you've pivoted and so, like really, you that you really have earned the TV futurist because uh, you then went basically from social media to branded entertainment marketing.
yeah,
And so you realized what now everyone realizes, which is that um, creators and artists, they need to interact with their fans. Like that,
yeah.
it's now expected, it's now necessary. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
And also and also to exploit your IP, because what we did with Made in Chelsea, we had the fan show which was on YouTube, and then we had a concert series live in Chelsea in the not in the football stadium, but like in a room.
yeah,
It was part of the football stadium. And I think that's also when it comes to Gen Z, it's very important to have this direct relationship with them and meet them in real life. Because it just deepens the relationship with your brand. And I think a lot of people are just thinking, oh, yeah, they're a digital native generation and we just have to be on social media. But it's really important to also meet them in real life. And yeah, and so I got a job offer in Switzerland from the first social television channel in Europe. And so their shows, every show was interactive, and I really liked that. So they had created a community, and they had a tool that they used, so they could insert pictures in the TV show, in the live shows, and comments
Wow.
of the community. And while we were broadcasting, there was one host that was constantly, chatting with the
Yeah.
community. And so if it was the focus was basically music, and when we had any musical guests, you could ask questions and just be a part of the show. I think they were also ahead of their time.
Yeah.
um,
I wish we would
and
see more of this in America.
sorry.
I wish America would do more of this. It really exists almost exclusively on YouTube. But big streamers, they haven't really embraced like live social interactivity. Big streamers. I guess social media like TikTok is different, but um, I
Yeah,
think
I think they were ahead of their time.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and I did branded entertainment there. Now in hindsight, I'm thinking I knew nothing about marketing because I consider myself, or I considered myself at the time more like a producer, like an interactive producer. And yeah, and then I just created these TV shows and social media campaigns. But I think because before I was working in social media, so I knew what community means. So I knew my super fans. I knew exactly what they liked. Like I said, like which characters, which plot lines, which products they liked. And the same with the TV channel. I knew the audience, I knew the community, and then I knew our commercial needs, what we needed. So we needed people on all platforms. We needed people to tune into the TV. We needed people on social media interacting with us, and we needed people watch our YouTube channel. So when I created campaigns, I tried to lead people, on all platforms. And then from the briefing, I also knew the client's needs, and I just tried to combine everything, um, just intuitively, I guess, because I had no idea,
Well,
like
so
how
y-
funnel works or how to create a flywheel or customer journey, all these marketing terms I had no idea about.
um,
But I think and I think that's important for producers. Like if you come like from a storytelling background, I think you intuitively insert the brand in the story, and not think like a marketeer, who thinks in these funnels.
yeah, yeah. You asked me to keep you updated on the time. So we only have 2.5 minutes left, but there's two
Thank you.
big things I really want to get to. But one is I like do you have like lessons that you can share? Because I think, there's a lot of filmmakers right now who are just gonna have to learn marketing, whether they would like to or not. And yeah, what lessons can you share?
I think first of all, um, if you don't know anything about marketing, you should include someone who knows about marketing in a development stage already. So for example, Wednesday, so I looked at Wednesday, and obviously they were thinking about on which platform would Wednesday be, not on Instagram. She's not a happy, selfie person who is on Instagram. So they created an X account for her. I think 2 years or one and a half years before they started production. That tells me that someone who thought about the marketing campaign was also in the development team. And yeah, and then it's very important while you produce that you create the content and that you already create a community and buzz. Because for me, it's difficult if someone has the finished product and then tells me, okay, here, please market my film or my TV show. Then there's nothing I can do anymore. It also gives you not enough time to yeah, create enough buzz for your show. And then I think the basics for marketing are who's your target audience. I think if you develop a film or a TV show, you should always think about who is your target audience. So I learned at my film school that you should just create art, you know, that comes from your heart. But I think that's very dangerous nowadays. You should at least think about who is this for? And then it's also easier if you want to market it, then you know, okay, they're on these platforms, they like this kind of content. Um, and then the second part is what's your goal? And because I see a lot of people, you know, doing social media without knowing what's my end goal. Is my end goal to bring people to the cinema? Is my end goal to create a community about a certain issue that I want to explore in, you know, a series of films or shows? Um, yeah, is my
Yeah.
goal to make a lot of money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, we did hit our 20 minutes, but did you have another note? Well, I wanted to point out just that I think more and more people are embracing the fact that marketing is a creative process, and it's nice to hear, you know, your journey coming from, you know, an art film school, and really not only embracing marketing as creative, but you know, encouraging others to get someone who is thinking creatively for in marketing, like at the beginning of your project, and it makes it a more it makes marketing you know, more embraceable for I think artists, which you know, it's always been a difficult relationship, I think, but I think it's
Yeah,
getting
and like 10 years ago, I wouldn't have called myself, you know, that I work in marketing. So I was part of the interactive peer group at the Emmys, and you know, I felt like I'm part of the interactive storytelling
yeah.
group. And now in hindsight, I'm also realizing, yeah, a lot of the members they work in marketing and there's nothing wrong about it because we're as creative it's as creative as a producer. Yeah.
One last question, because I told you I wanted to ask you this, and I know you were reluctant because as the TV futurist, I kind of wanted to know what is the future? What do you see? And so if you could want to just end on, like, I know you said events, but I'd like, I think a lot of people would appreciate your like take on what the future is in your eyes.
Yeah, I just said events in terms of movies, and this is just the near future. I don't know much about the movie industry to make any predictions. It's just what I've been seeing with, you know, K-pop Demon Hunters, and I myself went to the Taylor Swift concert movie, and everyone came dressed up, and everyone was singing along and dancing and I feel like if you want to make a big splash when it comes to movies, it has to be an event. But generally speaking, I think the future is very much multi-platform and niches. I think there won't be. I mean, we're seeing it already. There isn't a mainstream anymore. It's more niches. Popping up everywhere and people with the same passions and interests gathering around and even in marketing, by the way, the media companies, they're not targeting demographics anymore, so age gender, location. It's more about interests and desires. So it's more about, are you interested in cars rather than, yeah, where do you live or what gender you are. Um,
Fascinating.
and I think yeah, I think that that's the future, that it's gonna be more niches and more personalized as well. So I wrote a newsletter from the future on Monday from 2035 and I was explaining that I think AI won't take creative jobs away. It will just help us to make stories more personal, and it will probably be that you create a TV show. I mean, that's just from the future, but you will create a TV show or a movie, and that might be adapted to a specific location. So parts of the storylines are being adapted to a specific location or a specific audience or even individual viewers. And yeah, I think that's the future. It's going to be even more fragmented
You're
than it is already.
you were writing about AI 15 years ago and thinking about it 15 years from now, which is quite
Yeah.
incredible. But I think you're right, and I think it's a good thing because a lot of people fear that AI might replace human creativity, and I don't think that's a real
Mm-mm.
threat. I think in the end we'll figure out a way to make it a useful tool. It might be threatening at times, but um, anyway, uh, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Yes, thank you.
If we do another episode, we should talk interactive sometime.
Yes.
Uh, thanks so much.
Thank you.